Hello and welcome to the Science Fiction and Fantasy Marketing Podcast, the show where we help you establish your author brand, increase the size of your audience, and sell more books. I'm Lindsay Baroker, and I'm here with Jeffrey Poole and Joe Lalo. And we're alone this week, just the three of us. We're going to be answering some reader questions, kind of catching up on what we've been up to. I'll talk about my launch that I did a couple months ago, and we're also going to talk about kind of succeeding at going wide, having your books in more stores and not just being exclusive on Amazon. Because next week we actually have someone that's going to talk about really using all the tactics and strategies available in KDP Select. So for those who aren't into that, this is your week. All right, guys. Well, why don't we start out and get caught up? What have you been up to the last couple months? Have you published anything new or done any marketing stuff?
I'm tampering with Facebook marketing and Facebook ads, and I'm still, tweaking the recipe to try and see how many people I can reach and how many responses I get from it. And so far, it's going pretty good. I have since learned that, back when I tried to multitask and write both the mystery and the fantasy at the same time, that literally short circuits were happening in the brain. Figured out the best way to do it for me is chapter fantasy, then a chapter mystery, chapter fantasy, chapter. That's what works best for me because, like I said, I thought I could. I cannot multitask worth of crap anymore, so I've got to stay focused on one thing. But progress is being made. I'm hoping for a release date probably by the end of next month. Hopefully for both books. Knock on wood.
Nice. I actually can't. I have trouble doing that. I have to just finish the rough, and then I can do something else before I start editing. But I don't know if I could alternate chapters. I would find it challenging.
It's not. I mean, it's not nearly so bad. But like I said, what I was trying to do is I'd write the fantasy during the day, maybe I don't know, maybe 2, 3, 4,000 words, and at nighttime I would write maybe 2,500 words into the mystery, and oh God, that caused problems. So I don't recommend doing that.
All right, cool. Joe, what have you been up to?
I've had a fairly eventful couple of weeks, I suppose. I spoke in the past about having basically a surprise release where I just put the book out, and so that since then I've released another book. This was not a surprise. It was in fact already in pre-order when I released the previous one. So I've got now 3 books out in my steampunk series, and to help push that, we'll talk about this a little bit. But I made the first book semi-perma-free. Like it's price matched right now, so it could just remain free forever. But my intention had been for it to just be free for a limited time to help push the release of the second one. But it's doing rather well in the in iBooks, for example. So I think I'm going to leave it free until it starts to taper off. And I also recently released, I just recently finished and released a self-produced audiobook that was narrated. Like, I hired the narrator from my previous audiobooks, and I put it out. I think it has sold a grand total of no copies because I've barely mentioned it yet. I was sort of waiting until the promotional keys that they give you on Audible came in, and then I was going to try to stir up some business. But this is for a book that was out that came out last year, so I'm not exactly striking while the iron is hot. So I think I can afford to hang on to it until I have a full strategy in order. And I also got back a series of covers, and I got something back from the editor, and I have no idea how I'm going to market that. So at some point, I'm going to have to develop a marketing plan for a 200,000-word behemoth that doesn't fit into any one genre. So that'll be my little background job when I'm not writing.
So which genre do you think you're going to try and target it for? Any ideas?
I find that fantasy people are more accepting of things that have non-fantasy elements than vice versa, because it's mostly fantasy and sci-fi. So I'm going to probably pitch it as fantasy with sci-fi elements as opposed to sci-fi with fantasy elements. But it is literally about a fantasy world in which one person can get science to work. So it's kind of tricky to figure out exactly where it belongs.
Let me guess. This started out as a novella.
This started out as a serial, actually. This was my Wattpad thing. We'll talk about that later too. But this started out there, and then when I realized after 33 chapters I hadn't approached anything resembling a plot resolution, I sort of went behind the scenes and started writing it until it was done, and now I'm going to release it all wrapped up as a collection.
Nice.
33 chapters, huh?
Yeah.
Do you have an audience kind of built up from putting it out on Wattpad first?
They're not very vocal, but there's a fair number of reads. It's funny because later Wattpad will tell you how many people have looked at each individual chapter. And while I put up a few of my other books, and again we can talk about that later, and seen some stats on it, the reader stats on this are consistently higher than my sort of promotional books that are up there. So I have a quiet fan base that have probably been very impatiently waiting for the next chapter. So I'll have to sort of figure out how to rope them into the, direct them to where they can get the finished product.
All right, cool. Well, with me, I'll actually segue this into our first listener question, but as I talked about, I guess the last time we chatted was in May. I was about to launch my science fiction series, and I kind of talked about what I was going to do, so I don't want to talk about this too much today. I'll direct you back to that episode if you hit the show notes. This is 91 we're recording today. But I did launch the first 3 books in that at the end of May. Made the first one 99 cents and put the second and third ones out at $3.99 just a few days later. And it did well. This was my first time going into KDP Select and Kindle Unlimited, and I think that really helped it. It kind of stuck for a while, it got as high as 118 that I saw, or as low as 118 in the overall Amazon store, and then it stayed in the high hundreds, 200s for 4 or 5 weeks, and it's been dropping now. I think it was up to 500 or so the last time I checked, but that's still great for me, and I think Kindle Unlimited has played a big role in that, because as I mentioned a couple times in previous shows, it really wasn't written to market. I started reading it before Chris's book came out, and I mentioned that was probably a good thing, because I might have been tempted to change things, just because he was talking about, yeah, that's kind of the way to stick. That's the way to, give them what they really want. And I've seen some other books launch since then that have done even better and stuck even more, but I'm pleased with, because I didn't really think when I was putting together the blurb that it would stick at all, because basically it's space opera, science fiction kind of thing, but it's like the whole point of the series is a mother trying to find her kidnapped daughter, and I thought, well, no guy is going to pick this up, and no woman who doesn't have kids is going to want to read this, and so I've been pleasantly surprised that it's done pretty well. And to answer Victor's question, he said he was interested in hearing particular figures. For example, what promos did you run? How big is your list? How did you segment it? And how often did you send the emails? I believe I saw you launched at 99 cents. And he just was kind of wondering some of the specifics. So yes, I launched the first one at 99 cents, and it got about, let's see, I actually looked it up for you guys, 8,000 sales in June and that last week of May, so in about 5 weeks. And over 2 million page reads, which I thought was pretty good because it was only 75,000 words, which for Joe is a novella. And it's actually a pretty short book for me, too. The second and third ones, which came out just a little bit later, a few days later, were about 4,000 to 4,500 sales in that same time frame, and each had about 1.5 million page reads. It was my first time being in Kindle Unlimited under my name. I played with the pen name, and it was my first time getting a bonus. I think you get it was for being in the top 100 total pages read, and I got one in the UK too, so that was kind of cool. I'm sure I was right at the bottom. So the promos I ran, I did Books Butterfly, eReader News Today, Fussy Librarian, free Kindle books and tips, and the Fiverr guy, BK Nights. He only charges $5, of course, because Fiverr. And, I tried to stagger them, so I had stuff going on that first week to week and a half, as we talked about before, doing that slow burn launch strategy instead of just throwing everything out there at once. And, I think that was really helpful. I think, like we've been talking about all summer, if you wrote the book to market, it's got an awesome cover, and it's totally what your genre expects, maybe you don't need to do as much. I swear I've heard about people that just kind of like threw it out there and hit some their lists, and pretty much stuck in the top 200. Maybe someday I'll actually be able to write something like that, but I don't know. I'm not that excited about what the market loves usually. And I also used my mailing list. So I've got about 6,000 people on my just regular list that I've had up. You have to hunt on my site to find the form. It's not really well integrated, and I've never given anything away for free. So that's probably a pretty small list compared to what some people are doing. But so I actually offered those guys. I knew eventually I would make book 1 free, because I always do for BookBub. So I just gave anybody who was willing to sign up for my new Fallen Empire list, which will become the Sci-Fi KDP Select email list, basically. I gave them the first book for free. So I gave away about 1,500 copies that way and got a new email list seeded. And in that one, I've been giving away the prequel novella for the series, which answers some questions people are going to be curious about who have actually read the first book and beyond. And that mailing list got, it started with 1,500, but now it's up to over 4,000. And this is just at 2 months since the launch of the first book, so it's really supports the idea that if you give away something, you're probably going to get more signups. And in this case, the plug for the mailing list is at the end of book 1 and the end of the following books. So it's only getting people who have actually read the books. Obviously, it helps if you're selling a lot of books, but that's the way I like to do it. I'm not really big into just trying to target anybody that wants the books and giving them away. And I did try to segment it a little bit. I sent the announcements out over 3 days to the list. So that is something I think is probably not a bad idea and we'll probably do in the future. I think that was all the questions that you asked, Victor, maybe. In regard to the 99 cents, I had intended to actually bump it up to $2.99 after the first week or two. And at that point, it was still in the like 150 range on Amazon, and I said, just let it roll. I don't want to mess with anything, because in this case, it wasn't just that book. It was about getting people into the series. I launched the 4th book in late June, and just today I published the 5th book. So the longer that first book is selling well, it helps the other books in the series to sell well, and those are the ones at $3.99 where I'm really making the money. Although I will say 99 cents in KU can make you some good money. Like 1 million, 2 million page reads is nothing to sneeze at if you can get it. Okay, so it's still at 99 cents if you're wondering. I actually tried to put it up to $2.99 a few weeks ago, kind of after the momentum was falling off anyway. And it went from high 200s to high 400s in like 2 days, and I freaked out and put it back at 99 cents. Eventually, I'll put it at $2.99 once it's kind of lost some momentum, and who cares, because only the diehard people are buying it. And at some point I want to get a BookBub ad hopefully too, so I have to be able to discount it in order to do that. So, all right, I just talked a lot. Do you guys have any comments before that question was kind of for me, but if you have any thoughts on launches or anything, please let me know.
Nothing really to add to that, I don't think. You did a good job.
Thank you. All right, Joe's staying muted, so I guess he has nothing to add to that either. All right, next question was from someone on Twitter. I've forgotten, I'm sorry. But he or she or gender-neutral person was asking, have you guys used Amazon's new ebook giveaways?
I personally have not. I do have my mystery novel now in KU, and I've seen it there. I've been kind of curious about it, but until I talked to someone who actually did it themselves, I wasn't going to try experiment, or at least not until I do some research about it. Not yet, anyway.
I looked into it, and it looks like I have used Rafflecopter in the past, and basically Amazon giveaways is like an Amazon version of that. And the big problem I had with Rafflecopter was fulfillment. Like actually giving the prize away was kind of hard to do. And this is just tied in with Amazon. Like you purchase the product and pay for shipping, and then Amazon ships it out. So I could certainly see the value of it, but I haven't actually applied it to any of my stuff yet.
All right, well, I have done 2 of them, so I will attempt to answer. For ebooks, you can go down to any ebook page now, I think, and scroll to the bottom and it says, would you like to do a giveaway? And it doesn't have to be your ebook, it can be anybody's. And you do have to pay for the books you give away, so you might want to give away your 99-cent books or nothing. It was okay to do once or twice and try it out, but I bought 20 copies of 2 of my different books just to give away for the heck of it. And what happens is, in order to enter, they have to follow you on Amazon, follow your author page, so they click the follow thing. And the value in that is that nowadays when you have a new release, Amazon should be sending out at some point a message about that new release to all the people who have followed your author page in the past. I've heard it's a little hit and miss. I've heard from readers that it did happen, and I've gotten some with authors I follow, so including myself. I'm not sure how I ended up following myself, but I was excited. I learned when I had a new book out. So that seems to be kind of the primary thing right now, and maybe it ties in with these launches when you're trying to stagger things out, because BookBub also has a thing where anybody who's followed you in the past, they will send, if you tell them about your new release, they'll send it out to those people. And it's just like, as we're trying to get these launches to go over a week or 2 weeks and have sales every day, it can be useful to have other things where that you can't, you can only segment your email list so much and spread it out and still get sales. So I don't know, if anybody here has tried it out and had more interesting results, please let us know. Come on by the show and leave a comment, and we'd be happy to hear about it. All right, last question is from Jacob. He wanted to know if any of our podcasts have covered author newsletters. And I said we've talked about it a lot, but maybe we haven't really just said, here's the basics, here's the program we use, and here's how we integrate it and get signups and stuff. So do you guys want to say what you're using and like how you have the form and how you're getting people to sign up?
Well, I can say I've got WordPress. I'm using WordPress for my blog, and I have since found a while ago, I found a nice newsletter plugin that you can add to the WordPress site, and that handles all of it. And right now, I think my newsletter is not nearly as big as you guys, but it handles everything beautifully. It actually uses their own email server. I don't have to worry about it. It staggers them so that I don't bombard everybody at the same damn time, and I get flagged as a spammer. But I personally, on mine, I had a slow rate of subscribers until I think we talked about it a good long while ago, that it's always handy to offer incentives. And as soon as I put a free short story in there, the amount of subscribers just tripled overnight and just kept steadily increasing since then. So that definitely helps. But I've thought about, I know my WordPress will allow me, if I wanted to have, I think what they call a splash screen, like as soon as you visit the blog, up pops that thing, hey, do you want to sign up for the newsletter? Click here, enter your email address. I've thought about using that, but honestly, every time I see an author site or if I'm checking into that and something immediately blasts at me the first time I open it up, I get annoyed. So I really don't want to annoy anybody. So I was going to ask you guys do either you do that when you first go to your website, and do like instantly ask somebody, hey, sign up to the website, sign up to the newsletter, or what do you guys do?
I do not. I've heard from people that even though it's annoying, it works. So it's kind of up to you. I don't and probably won't, just because of kind of what I was talking about. I really want to get the people on my newsletter who have at least read the first book in the series, and I know are future book buyers, as opposed to just trying to get as many people as I can. So that's why I haven't done that. I know there are plugins that will let you do that.
Yeah, likewise, I don't have that on there, and I likewise have heard that they're actually very, very successful at getting people onto your list, but I similarly don't want to annoy people who visit my page.
Yeah, I view it just like a pop-up. Is like something pops up, like, damn, those things are annoying. So, but yeah, I've heard the same thing too. Is people are like, oh yeah, this is a great way to get people to sign up. Well, what if you start getting emails, not on @yourlife.com? I mean, you never know what's going to show up in there. So, oh well. I'm still debating.
Let me ask you, Jeff, do you know the name of the WordPress plugin that you're using to do the newsletter? I bet people might be curious about that.
Believe it or not, I think it's actually called Newsletter, but I mean, I'll just open it up here in the side here. And go ahead and keep talking here. As soon as I figure out what this thing is, I'll let you know.
All right, and just to clarify for people, you're not on WordPress.com, I assume. You're on your own site that you have hosted somewhere, and you've installed WordPress on your own site.
That is correct. I mean, you have the option if you want to make it essentially your username .wordpress.com. But me personally, I have what's called a deluxe hosting site at GoDaddy, which translates to about $70 a year, but I can have as many domain names hosted on that website as I want. And if I install WordPress plugin once, then I can have as many WordPress plugin or sites as I want. So that's pretty much how I've got it hosted on mine. Of course, then again, I also have a slight advantage that I know what I'm doing with it, so I know it can be daunting there.
Well, a lot of the hosting packages these days actually have like a one-click WordPress install, and if you don't know anything about that, it's pretty easy to hire someone for a couple hours of work to set you up too.
Okay, so yeah, it's just called Newsletter, and it's by a guy by the name of Stefano Lisa and the Newsletter team. It is one of the coolest, easiest plugins you can add to WordPress here, because is, I mean, they've got wizards and they'll walk you through everything, and they're releasing updates all the time as they discover problems. So it's not one of these plugins that, it's nice to have it, but it's like 3 years old and no one's ever going to work on it again. So right now that's the one I use, and it works great.
All right, and do you have any thoughts about will you maybe get in trouble, or if at some point you've emailing, say, 10,000 people with that? Because I hear most people I talk to are on like MailChimp or Aweber or something like
Yeah,
that.
if it ever gets that size, I will gladly sign up for a Mailchimp site there. But thus far, I mean, what this plugin will specifically do is they'll only send out a small amount of number per hour. So that way they don't overload any systems. I think that's what they do to stay under the radar. But if you get, like, say eventually a 10,000 list there, yeah, it might take you a week and a half to get them all out there. So that's when it starts getting that big, you'll definitely want to do something else. But when you're first starting out, this is a great way to do it because it gives you the ability to export your email addresses out, import them in if you so choose. Yeah, it's slick.
All right, glad to hear it. Okay, Joe, what are you doing over there?
I'm on MailChimp, and I didn't start my newsletter until I had sort of had my initial punch of popularity. So my newsletter grew very slowly. But the primary sign up, like the primary way that I drive sign-ups is, like Lindsay, I have a link at the back of every one of my books. I basically have a sort of from the author boilerplate that I plop into the back of every book, and part of it is if you'd like to learn more, click here to join the newsletter. I've also got one on that site above the fold, right on the side, no pop-ups or anything. And I have been doing perks. I refer them as newsletter perks, and basically whenever I have anything short, like if I've written a short story for a collection, after the collection's exclusivity period is over, I'll give those things away as newsletter perks. So there's sort of a revolving free thing that I give away. And that's the primary way that I sort of drive people in. And it's continued to give me a fairly steady trickle of new signups. I actually have short stories somewhat frequently because, again, people will give me, I will occasionally be given limits. I was recently asked to write 2 stories that were less than 12,000 words, and I managed to keep it down to 13,000 words. So not terrible. And I don't really do anything fancy like segmenting, although obviously if you're familiar with MailChimp, it's got an awful lot of features. And I'm still well below the threshold where I would have to start paying for it. And yeah, that's about how my newsletter is handled.
All right, and for myself, I am on Aweber, and it's no particular reason. I just had an account there already when I started doing the author stuff because I used to do internet, not marketing, but in theory I could have. But I used to have a list for a blog I ran, and Aweber was always kind of considered the one to use for a lot of the internet marketers. So I still have them, and I'm on a really old plan, so I haven't really looked into changing things because I hardly get charged anything considering the size of my lists, and I can have multiple lists. But it is something to keep in mind that as your lists get higher with most of these services like Aweber and MailChimp, you will get charged more. So that's another reason to think about if you really want to be trying to recruit tons and tons of people that aren't proven buyers. And I've heard some authors say, yeah, it's worth it. It's totally worth it. Because it's not a huge amount each month, so it's really up to you. All right, and yeah, I actually have my newsletter really poorly integrated on my website. That's 6 years old now. Someday I'm going to get it updated. I have a list of things I want, but it's just not been a priority. I keep prioritizing publishing more books. But I agree, even if you don't do pop-ups, you should have it prominently displayed. Unlike me, you have to click to another page on my site to find it or scroll down. It's in the menu bar. So someday, when I have the website of my dreams, I'll get it in there good. And Joe, what you were saying about continually putting stuff out, I think that's a really good idea. We had Damon from BookFunnel kind of talking about that, and after he was on, I was like, okay, I got to give them something new. So I wrote some bonus scenes, like a second epilogue, and I'm going to be sending that out to my people here at the same time as, I guess tomorrow, as soon as I announce the Book 5 release. And I think that is a good idea because then you don't get, well, you still probably get people that just sign up to get the one book and unsubscribe, but other people will see that you're continuing to add stuff and should stick around, one hopes. So definitely a good strategy. And like I said, I'd never bothered with it before, and it's amazing how much faster the mailing list is. I've had like 40, 50 signups a day this last couple of months, as opposed to maybe 2 or 3 over the previous 5 years. All right, so let's move on to kind of one of our main topics here, as we're halfway into our hour show. It seems like it's time. So we promised some tips for succeeding at going wide, and as I said, or I meant to say, that's publishing on Kobo, Barnes & Noble, Smashwords, maybe Smashwords. If Drafted Digital can get you into some of these stores. Google Play, if you already have an account, you can publish there. Apparently, they're not taking new signups right now. But did I miss anybody? Apple, Barnes & Noble, all those guys? Most of these places have their own self-publishing portal now, so you can make an account there and sign up to publish with them. A lot of people like Drafted Digital. I think the 3 of us all started many years ago when they weren't around, and we went with Smashwords. They're both distributors that can get you into all the stores. I think Drafted Digital pays monthly and has a few more windings and perks, but Smashwords, both of them will try to work with the authors and try to get some promotions and stuff if you don't go direct. With Apple, it can be, I think it's fine now. I initially had some trouble getting signed up with their screwy back end stuff. Sorry, Apple people, I had trouble. It could just be me.
Careful, they're listening.
I know. Who said that last week? Now I'm all paranoid. There's 5 Apple reps going, nope, she's crossed off the list. But once you get signed up, it's not too bad. But you do have to, apparently you have to have a Mac and to get the iTunes Producer program. And if you don't want to deal with all that, you can just do Smashwords or Drafted Digital and have them handle all of it. You are going to be giving them a little small percentage of the sales, so that's something to keep in mind. I actually don't find it very difficult to go to all the different sites and upload new books, so maybe it takes an hour, not even that, probably a half hour. So that's my thought. Are you guys uploading to Kobo and Barnes & Noble direct and Apple, or do you just go through Smashwords?
I thought about actually going to each individual distributor just to see about, kind of actually on me being greedy, is like, I could probably get a little bit more of a royalty and take away that little bit that Smashwords actually does. But then I started thinking about all the different retailers out there. I was like, laziness. So to answer the question, still with Smashwords. I know they take their small little cut, but right now they're doing a good job of getting the book out to all those distributors besides Amazon. So I don't have any complaints with them. They do a good job.
Likewise, with the exception of Google Play, which Smashwords does not distribute to. Yeah, I go through Smashwords to everyone except for Amazon. If you are on Smashwords, you'll see that Amazon is actually still sort of listed as one of their distribution platforms, but they never actually distribute to Amazon.
Doesn't it say it's still in process or pending or something like that? I was like, it has been that way for, let's see, I've joined them like 6 years ago, so yeah. Should have asked Mark about that when he was on.
I actually sent an email to him one time because I was interested in what that was about. And basically, if you're a really high seller and you just want the convenience of not even having to send Amazon, then they will send it for you. But this was several years ago when he said that to me. But obviously, I don't do that because Amazon's sort of got a lot of stuff you might want to tweak along the way. And Smashwords has a lot of options, but not all of the ones that KDP has.
Right.
All right, so let's talk about briefly why should you bother going wide and going to all the stores when we've had so many guests on this last year who are just killing it over there with KDP Select, and as I admitted with my new series, I think Kindle Unlimited is key in not dropping right away and actually sticking up there for a while. So what are your thoughts on why are you wide and why are you staying wide?
Well, the easiest way to think about that is ask the question, does everybody own a Kindle? And the answer to that would be no. Imagine a graphical pie, and then you're divvying up the pieces of pie to all the different distributors out there. Do you want to just target one slice? Or you want to target as much of that pie as you can? I mean, I started writing in 2010, back when the ebooks were really kicking on there. And those fantasy, if I tried to limit the fantasy books to just Amazon, I would get crucified because I've got a lot of fans that have, are the Nook readers, and a lot of fans, at Apple, and I can't do that because I've got to keep it wide there because I want to make sure I'm not just selectively targeting one group of people and says, okay, everyone else is SOL. You guys get the new books. Have a nice day, and please don't email me.
Now, see, I've actually got an iPad and I still shop in the Amazon store. So I definitely have people that have told me, I'll wait till it's in iBooks, or I'm a Barnes& and Noble Nook people. But because the Kindle app can be downloaded on so many other devices, I kind of wonder how many people are actually denying. I don't know, because I don't shop in iBooks. There goes my rep crossing me off again. I can't find stuff in iBooks. I love Amazon for just finding books. The also bots are awesome, and it's been a while since I looked, so I'll check again on iTunes. But Amazon has me. They own me.
Yeah, I've got the same thing. My iPad, I've actually got a little folder on there where it has multiple apps. That's, there's Amazon, there's iBooks, there's Barnes and Noble Nook Reader, there's the Kobo Reader, there's the Scribd Reader, there's all these different ones that are out there. So yeah, I've got all the accounts, but yeah, I'm just assuming I've got a lot of, as a computer tech side of thing, I've got a lot of clients that are up there in years. They don't want to mess with all these newfangled gizmos, but a simple little Kindle they can handle, or Barnes and Noble Nook Reader, or whatever else readers are out there. So if that's what their preference is, to read on one of these other devices, then the least I could do is make it available on the other devices.
Yeah, and I've definitely, in addition to that, in addition to wanting to not irritate readers, I've definitely found, I like the idea of diversifying the income, as we've talked about here before, and not being entirely reliant on Amazon. There's been, especially this last few months, there's been several stories about authors getting kicked out of KDP Select for supposedly, you know, being accused of gaming the system when apparently they were just caught in the crossfire, or somebody else was, I don't know, doing something. And it's hard. It's not that many, of course, in comparison to how many authors are in there, but it does make you think, like, well, what would happen if Amazon decided my account was terminated out of nowhere? And even if you get it reinstated later, maybe lose some money, or you'd be freaking out for a while. So I know it was really cool for me to get to the point where between Barnes & Noble and Kobo and Smashwords, iTunes, I was making enough to pay the bills just with those sites. And so it's a nice point to get to. I do appreciate that. It's a little scary to be entirely reliant on one shop, vendor, merchant.
That would definitely be a major con, is that you got all your eggs in one basket. If something happens to that basket, you're in trouble.
Right. All right, Joe, what are your thoughts?
Well, obviously, I agree with the points that you guys have made. Also, like, we've sort of talked about how, like, every book you have is sort of a lottery ticket and has a chance to hit big, and to a similar degree, storefronts are like that, because not all storefronts have sales spikes at the same time, and they have different targeted promotions and stuff. So, but not only that, but different storefronts. We've had people on here who talked about different storefronts have different tolerance for things like genre, length, and price. Like, people on Google Play tolerate higher prices, I've noticed. And likewise, I've heard Kobo actually sort of tolerates a higher price, because so many of their customers are not in the United States, and that's another thing. Is a lot of the storefronts that aren't Amazon have much stronger overseas sales than sort of Amazon does. So those are all good reasons. But also, the smaller storefronts, and I mean smaller in relative sense, Apple's enormous, but they are able to, more willing to work with smaller authors to do promos. So I've never had Amazon approach me to do a promo, but I've done promos with Kobo and Apple. So that's handy. And in fact, if you were to go on Apple right now, you'd see that I think they're still promoting my most recent steampunk release in their sci-fi section. So that's cool. Another thing that I sort of realize is when you're exclusive, you're extremely limited in sort of your own promo potential. Like, we've had Jason Chen from Story Bundle on. I've been involved with Story Bundle a lot. You can't be in a Story Bundle if you're exclusive, and you can't do your own giveaway not through Amazon, or bundle your story with any collection that's going to go wide. So your hands are really tied in a lot of promotional ways if you are exclusive on Amazon.
Yeah, I've definitely felt that too. And you may not be as appealing to, like, the BookBub and some of the big sites if you're only available on one vendor. I mean, I've gotten ads for my pen name, but I feel like I get them a lot more easily with my stuff that's under my name and wide. And then, yeah, like you were saying, Story Bundle and some of the opportunities that may come up, you can't partake in them because you can't sell anywhere else besides Amazon. And I've definitely had that thing where you forget what you were saying in the middle of when you're saying it. So that's happening to me now. So I would just sagely say I agree with Joe.
Well, thank you.
He's very wise, and whatever I was going to say probably wasn't wise. All right, so what are you guys finding that's actually working for you? Because a lot of people, they want to leave KDP Select, like at least try it with one series or something. So, because I think a lot of people want to diversify their income, but the frustration is that they don't really have an income on these other sites, and so they try it for 6 months or maybe a year, and they eventually say, well, I was doing better, I was making more money exclusive to Amazon, and so they go back. So what do you think are some ways that people that want to try it can actually get on the board on the other sites and sell some books?
I would definitely say perma-free. If you have more than one book in your series, especially if you have, like, say, 3, 4, 5 books in the series, make your first one perma-free, because that will keep the interest going. People will say, it's free, I'll give it a try. They might not get to it fairly immediately, but eventually they will, and they say, either they'll say, yeah, this is great, let's look at that, they've got a whole new series, I just found a brand new author I enjoy following, and they'll go ahead and start, sales will start going from there. I've always had one of those on my series, and it's done well for me.
Yeah, I have to agree with perma-free book one. As I was saying, my recent steampunk release, I made the first book in the steampunk series perma-free, and last I checked, which was yesterday, it was still in the top 10 sci-fi free books, and it's been perma-free for almost 4 weeks now. So perma-free, we'll talk a lot about how perma-free seems to be reducing in effectiveness, but that reduction in effectiveness is because of Kindle Unlimited, and Kindle Unlimited doesn't exist on the other storefronts. So the perma-free hasn't really gone down nearly as much in effectiveness on other places. Plus, I've also found that with the perma-free, the sort of trickle through, and maybe this is just me, but it seems like the trickle through is a lot stronger on the other places than it is on Amazon. Again, oddly enough, whereas Ickerwell, the third book in the steampunk series, is my most recent release, right now the second book in the series, which came out more than a year ago, is actually higher ranked because the trickle through from the free book one is pushing it up higher than the new release. So I definitely think that perma-free is one of the ways to go.
Now, are you guys doing anything? Because I don't shop in any of these stores, and I should really surf around. I think once I went and looked for my books on iTunes, and all the free books for science fiction and fantasy maybe were all together on one page that you just kept scrolling and scrolling down. Is that still the case? Do you know? And is there anything you guys are doing to try to make your permafrees more visible at these other stores?
I haven't. That's something I had to try. I haven't really gone looking for it to see how easy it is I could find it. The real thing I do on my own personal website is, because I've got my website blog everywhere, is I've got nice handy dandy links on how you can find all the stuff, regardless of the seller. Amazon links, Barnes and Noble links, you name it. If I come across another retailer, I'll put the link on the website.
Likewise, I most of my effort, like when I'm trying to market on other places besides Amazon, I'm targeting largely Google Play and iBooks, because those are my sort of number 2 and number 3 in terms of earners. And I always make sure that when I'm pushing a new release, I sort of push those equally to my Amazon stuff. But other than that, I don't do a tremendous amount to specifically push the visibility of my perma-free on other places.
All right. Well, I also have perma-free book ones in 2 of my series out there for series starters, and I agree it seems to help, especially on the other sites. I'm not sure I've seen it help as much as I have 2 box sets also for those 2 big series, books 1 through 3 bundled in my Dragon Blood series and also my Emperor's Edge series. And a lot of the times I'll have one of those at 99 cents, usually after if I'm able to get a BookBub, or if I can't get a BookBub, I'll try to stack some other smaller sites. And I've found that's really been a huge difference for me as far as sales and income at Barnes & Noble and at Kobo too. Kobo used to be like, oh, I made a couple $100. And it's now in the thousands most months, low thousands. It's not a huge seller for me, but and I think it's just I keep selling these. I usually leave them for 99 cents until I'm thinking of trying to get a book web again, and then it has to be full, like full price or a higher price for a couple months before you can try to get the ad. And I don't know, those box sets, I think because they appear in the paid listings, they're not often some separate free store, that maybe helps with this visibility, but they've really been pretty steady sellers for me on Barnes & Noble and Kobo in particular. And I do sell books at Apple. I'm not as aware of it because I find their sales, everything about it's just a little more complicated. And a lot of my books still go to Apple through Smashwords because I think they were the last one that I actually started going direct with. So I don't know if you've got a series out there, and I know not everybody has a series yet, but if you can put together a 1 through 3 box set and then get a few ads on it when you drop it to 99 cents, I feel that's really helped me with sticking. And it probably doubled my Barnes & Noble income when I first did that about a year and a half ago, and it's really stayed at that higher level. Some of these sites, I would say Barnes & Noble in particular, they seem to stick for long. Things stick a little longer after a book bub or just after a stack of promos if you're able to sell quite a few there over a weekend or whatever. So I really like that for the other stores and for Amazon too. That works great on Amazon as well. So those are my kind of main things I've done. And same as these guys, I usually, when I send out a newsletter link, I'll put all the links even for Google Play, which is not a big seller for me in the newsletter. If it's out there, I try to put a link to it. All right, any more tips, guys? Or should we go on to the kind of what we're doing for set it and forget it marketing?
Let's go on to the set it and forget it.
All right. I don't even remember if I mentioned that early on, but we kind of wanted to talk about, or at least I wanted to talk about, some of the things that we've done that sort of continuously pay off, continually maybe. We've talked about the launch and really trying to stack some ads and segment your newsletter and get all as many sales as you can over 2 weeks so you'll stick. Well, we're not all going to stick, but if you have older series and you want to do some things that can kind of keep you from just dropping off the face of the earth, because it's really easy for that to happen to all of us, especially after you finish a series, you're not putting out new installments anymore. So some of the things I've done as many as 5 years ago that still pay off is kind of what I want to talk about, and what the guys have done too. A couple of things I did early on was I had the audiobooks made of the first 3 of my Emperor's Edge books, and at the time there's Podiobooks is still a site where you put the audiobooks out for free, and it's in iTunes. People can find them kind of like podcasts. And at the time, you used to be able to put them out like 1 chapter a week and really get people going like a serial thing. I believe they now, last I checked, just they put the whole book out there at once. And that can still work. It's sort of the same thing as the perma-free. It's just with audiobooks. And the nice thing about audiobooks is, or not the nice thing, I don't know, is that they take so much more effort to produce. You either have to record it yourself or you have to pay quite a few dollars to get it recorded. So because of that, though, there's a lot fewer of them out there for people that are surfing around and want audiobooks to pick from, especially if they're looking for free audiobooks, which I don't blame anyone because audiobooks are expensive. So it's kind of a way, if you haven't gotten any notice yet and you've got a series, it may be something to look into, is maybe producing that first 1 or 2 books, putting it out there. And I've had people go on and buy the ebooks for the rest of my series after they complained to me that because the rest of the audiobooks aren't out there. They've gone on and bought the books because they wanted to finish the series. So Podiobooks is one I've done. I also have those first 3 books on Wattpad, which I didn't really work the whole Wattpad system as far as trying to make friends and commenting on other people's stuff. And someday we should definitely get a person from Wattpad on to answer questions on how best to do it. But I just put the first 3 books up there, and it's another thing where I did like 5 years ago now, and just over time they've racked up the views. They still get comments. I still get people that email and say, hey, I found you on Wattpad. Sometimes they say, can I get the rest of the books for free, or can you put the rest of the books up on Wattpad? But some people say, I read the whole series, I bought the books, or maybe they got some nice pirated copies, I don't know. But no, So I feel like doing these types of things can be what keeps you from just totally falling off the radar. And the nice thing about these is you do it once and it's done, and it's something that continues to create interest for your works years down the road. One other thing I've done is, and I think Joe is going to talk about this too, is just being in box sets with other authors. with your book one series starter. Maybe you get in a new one every year or so, and it's just a new place. It's got a new cover. It comes at it from a new angle, so you might get new readers checking that out. And often these box sets will be 99 cents or free. So I think that can really help. It's another thing, it might be a little work to start up, but then it's just out there doing its thing. Maybe your group promos it every now and then, but there's so much, you can spend so much time marketing and doing things that really don't necessarily do a lot, but I think it's really good if you can find a few things you can do once and then either forget about it or just have minimal things you have to do to keep things going along the way. All right, what are you guys doing that falls into that camp?
Well, I usually do I go down to the perma-free, so if you have more than one series, make book one free, and especially if you have, like I was saying, multiple books in that series. I like doing Goodreads giveaways because it keeps people talking about the books, and that way I can keep, putting stuff like blasting it on, not blasting, but putting it up on social media like Facebook or Instagram or whatnot. Hey, Goodreads giveaway here, and it gets people signing up. Let's see here. I also do the multi-author box sets as well. I've actually got my own omnibus going on. So, I mean, people like reading or seeing that. They've got it available and at a little bit of a cheaper price. So it's just collectively all these things, usually is enough to keep the books downloading. Because as long as you can, in my case, as long as I see those series one, book one in the series downloading, then I know the interest is there and I keep getting the sales as a result of it. Is what I usually do.
Yep. Also, obviously, perma-free, as we talked about before. I'm on Wattpad, as I mentioned at the top. I have released my two free books are on Wattpad as a chapter by chapter, and I was doing a weekly serial, which garnered a fair number of people. And I will periodically get messages from people on either directly through Wattpad or via emails letting me know that they really enjoyed my stuff. Although, to be fair, a lot of those people say, I can't wait until you come out with the next book. And the book has been out for 3 years. They just didn't bother to check to see if it was anywhere else. So it's certainly effective to get you in front of readers, but and I didn't put a whole lot of effort into letting people know you have to buy the rest. So make sure it's clear at the end of your thing that there is more. It's just not on Wattpad. Being in multi-author bundles for series starters, as has been said, is tremendously useful. It's probably behind thank you for having your first book free, which actually got tweeted to me a couple hours ago. I will most frequently get emails letting me know, oh, I found you because of such and such a collection that you're in, and I really enjoy your stuff. I went right out and bought the rest. So that's been a really big driver without having to do too much work. Some of the other weird stuff that works for me, oddly enough, not having quite a comprehensive paperback or audiobook catalog has driven a lot of ebook sales. Like, as Lindsay said, people will get started in their medium of choice, and if your stuff is compelling enough, they're going to try to track it down through whatever means they can get it if they can't get it the way they want it. Now, ideally, you're going to give it to them the way that they want it, but I've had a lot of people who came through and they're like, I hope you come out with the paperback soon, but I had to pick up the ebook in the meantime. And then another one that works for me, and this has actually been very effective lately, but not terribly reliable, and that is artwork. I commission a lot of artwork. I do character art and stuff, and I sort of release it to the fans. Sometimes I'll do like a wallpaper and make that a newsletter perk, but that doesn't work very well. But I'll just, like, if I have a character and I see an artist who's looking for commissions and I think they do a good job, I will have them do it. And if you give them a lot of latitude, if you say, this is what the character looks like, here's other artwork, give it to me in your style, lots of artists don't get the opportunity to do stuff in their own style very often, and they'll sort of stretch their wings and try new stuff. Recently, I had a figurine made for the cabinet over here, and the sculptor who made it tried out like 3 new techniques and made a really striking figurine, and it was selected for a daily deviation on DeviantArt.com. So all of a sudden, like, tons of, and she, of course, mentioned this is Joseph Lalo's character from the Book of Deacon series, and it puts it in front of a lot more eyes. And these are people who probably never would have found your book because they're more interested in art than literature. So being a patron of the arts has been surprisingly effective for me.
Out of curiosity, when you commission these things, what's your typical price range that you're willing to pay for one of these fan art things?
I mean, normally these are like from like fan artists. They tend to be below $100, but if it's like the figurine, for example, I'm willing to go up into the $1,000 range because I know that this is the sort of thing that's going to take them 50 hours to make. So I don't do that a lot. That's like a special treat to me. But yeah, I'm most of them are going to be in the $100 or below. But for something special, the sky's sort of the limit for me.
Out of curiosity, do you still have your 3D printer?
I do still have my 3D printer.
Have you made any of your figurines from that thing yet?
I haven't. I have one. I have a 3D file that I had made, but I haven't printed it out on my own printer yet, just because my old printer was getting screwed up, so I got a new printer. It's clear that I spend money on gadgets, but I haven't tested the calibrated the new printer for that yet. But I have the capacity to print out duplicates of my own figurines.
Cool.
All right. Do any of your people that find you through DeviantArt get disappointed when they start reading the book and there's no pictures in it?
I have had a couple of people let me know that they wished they were illustrated. I've had not terribly common where they complain to me. They'll usually, when I hear from somebody, it's because they're happy they found my books. But I have had more than a few people who thought that the artwork they saw was a part of the book, or will say, for example, I'm surprised you didn't even have a map in the book file. And I could totally do that, I just never did. So, yeah, when you get art-minded people, they are often more interested in the illustration and the cover than the actual book. But if they bought your book, then that's still okay.
I've got in the map thing. Someday I'm going to get maps made. And then in the recent series, are like people like, I can't imagine what your spaceship looks like on the inside or the outside. Can you please put a diagram of the spaceship on the inside? And I'm like, wow, you haven't seen me draw. That's so far. It's 2 levels. If it was 1 level, maybe I could do like a house plans kind of thing. But I don't know. If anybody out there does diagrams of spaceship interiors and wants to make a few bucks, let me know. All right. Any parting thoughts? I guess we've kind of hit on everything we had in our notes here to talk about tonight.
I don't. I personally don't. We appreciate all you listeners out there that enjoy hearing what we have to say.
Yeah, and I guess I can just say on the subject of the set it and forget it marketing, almost all of the marketing I do is what I've listed. I very, very rarely do anything that requires any level of upkeep. I've still never done a Facebook ad besides boosting a post. So I am a professional author who only really does set it and forget it marketing except for launches. So
and he can afford $1,000 custom figurines.
I can afford to throw away thousands of dollars total on my art closet here.
Okay, so for those of us that are actually watching this and not listening to it, all right, Joe, we've got to see it. Where's the figurine?
Oh, you want to see it?
Dig it up. If you can't produce it, it doesn't exist.
Stand by. You got to be very careful.
All right, Joe is going back to his closet, trying not to strangle himself on his headset as he moves away from the computer. You may want to watch the YouTube video someday if you haven't already, because he's got a very snazzy, what do you have, a cabinet of curiosities kind of thing for his stuff.
This is for people who are watching the video. This is the character Ivy. And because I made the promise to the person who sculpted it, this violin is sculpted with 3 different gauges of wire. So that's
so you can actually play it. It's really gorgeous.
it's an amazing piece. I'm amazed by it.
Did they paint it or did you paint it?
I can't paint. This was painted by them. And,
I know some people love painting like the Warhammer figurines and stuff. So.
I've painted one figurine in my life. It came out okay, but if I tried to paint this, it would have been a waste of money.
Okay, it looks really cool.
Thank you.
So, out of curiosity, the dedicated fans, can they order one?
Fees? Well, they could, I'm sure, but it would cost them $1,000, and I don't think they'd be into that. They could use one of my other figurines, but I'm not going to dig that one out. I think I've shown it on the show before.
Well,
that one's only $500.
No, it's well, what the heck? It's as long as we're going to waste time on the first one.
Joe is going back to the cabinet again, opening it. Those are clean windows. Joe, do you Windex those?
I do Windex them. I had to because when I bought that thing used, and there were nose prints on it, which I don't even want to know why. But this guy is, this girl is 3D printed, so you actually can buy this. It costs $45, I think. And,
all right, for the listeners at home, we are looking at a skunk with orange earrings.
It is a funk. It is a.
Oh, that's right. I remember.
Skunk. With red toenails.
With yep. So yeah, that's an actual product.
That's awesome. That'll be when I get a 3D printer. I'll make sure that's the first thing I print.
Right.
All right. For anybody who's still listening, we are going to sign off on that note. And as I said, we have a couple of good guests coming up, repeat guests in the next couple of weeks. Susan K. Quinn, she's the one that's going to really, she's very analytical, and she's been doing all these experiments with Kindle Unlimited, figuring out how to take books that aren't selling anymore and get them back selling. And we also have Rachel Aaron coming up here in a couple of weeks, who hybrid author. So she's got a lot of great insight both on self-publishing and traditional publishing. So stay tuned for those episodes. If you have any comments, if you want to design me a spaceship, this is episode 91 on marketingsff.com. And you can catch us on YouTube and iTunes too. And if you have a chance to leave a review and haven't yet, we would really appreciate it. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for listening.
All right, take it easy.
Bye-bye, everybody.